Well, hello there. How you doing? I'm Courtney. I'm the editor-in-chief at GASP ZINE. I'm about to teach you everything you need to know about how to make your own magazine on Illustrator and in InDesign, down to the print process. Everything you need to know here on YouTube. I know. I've been promising you guys this for like 2 years now. We're entering our third year next month. I'm really excited about this because I feel like a lot of YouTube tutorials, for me personally, they never feel fun. They feel so drawn out and like very much time wasting. And I'm not here to do that. I'm here to make this feel really fun. It should feel like you're here with me one-on-one. And I'm going to teach you literally every detail you need to know in ways that I think are pretty fun. I'm teaching you right now because we are currently in process of making our 12th magazine. So stick with us here every week. I also want to preface that if you're someone that is starting at like bare bottom level 0, this is for you. I started the magazine not knowing how to do any of this stuff, and I learned it pretty quickly. So yeah, don't be intimidated by Adobe. I also want to stress that something that we use at GASP is Illustrator and InDesign, and then the printing process. So if you were hoping to learn Photoshop, that's coming, but that won't be a part of this series. And Lightroom as well is coming, but it will not be a part of this series. So this is strictly Illustrator and InDesign from scratch, and I'm so fucking stoked to do this with you guys. So let's get started. So I'm gonna be over here in the corner because if you need something good to look at. But other than that, you can just refer to this giant screen right here. So first of all, everyone should know that based on your MacBook and the version of Adobe that Creative Cloud allows you to have, like everyone's Illustrator is going to look a little bit different. If you have any questions or your settings aren't like the same as mine, comment below and I will give you a quick tip. Cool, let's get started. So today we're just going to start by learning like your basic tools. The tools I'm going to teach you today are strictly for Illustrator, and yeah, let's get started. I'm opening Illustrator and I'm going to start by clicking New File. And again, we're treating this as if we were making the magazine. So if you were creating dimensions for Instagram, your dimensions will probably be like 1080 to 1350 px. But again, today this is as if we are making a magazine. So we're basing it off of inches. If you don't know, our magazine is 8.5 by 11, which is pretty standard magazine size, like Vogue or like Harper's Bazaar. Like all those magazines are 8.5 by 11, which is also what ours is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to the preset and I'm going to just name it My First Zine. This is my technically 13th, but today it's my first. I will say preset details are so important because if you do your preset wrong, it will affect the quality at which you're printing. So for what we do, we go to pixels and instead we're going to click inches. And in the width, we're going to put 8.5. And then in the height, we're going to put 11. Big slay. Cool. Orientation. Orientation is pages that are vertical and then so you'll see like a man that's like up and down, and then you'll see a man that's like wide. So the wide is if you were creating like a spread, which means like 2 of the pages open, which I wouldn't even suggest using that. Honestly, just use vertical. Vertical you can use across the board. Even if you're trying to do like a picture across 2 pages, you would do 2 artboards, but today we're going to start with 1 artboard. So we have it selected on vertical and we also have 1 artboard selected. What is an artboard? An artboard is like the amount of pages you're working on. Like you could think about it like that. So today we're only going to work on 1 page and we're just learning tools today. So super basic. Bleeds. So this comes in handy if you're printing something. Bleeds are not like a super requirement if you're just like doing like a social media post or, you know, like merchandise. Like this is really important for paper. What a bleed is, you know how when you print something, like the color goes all the way to the end of the paper. So that added space is what makes the color bleed off. That way you don't have a really tiny white border on the edge of your paper. So for bleeds, we're going to put 0.125. And when you do that, it should naturally do it for all the other 4 bleeds. Cool. Color mode. This is so important. Literally tattoo it on your titties. Color mode. If you are printing anything, okay? Pictures, magazine, anything. You cannot print in RGB. I mean, you can, but it's gonna look really bad. Like, it's gonna make black people look orange. It's gonna make your red look yellow. It's just gonna be a fucking mess. So we always want to make sure if we're printing, our color mode is CMYK. That's a 4-color processor, which is what the printer uses when they're printing your paper. So you want to match what the printer's doing, obviously. And yeah, RGB is just like for like your computer, your iPhone, like that's the color processor that you're seeing digitally. So you would use that for like Instagram, but we'll get to that another day. So we have a CMYK color, and then for PPI, we want to make sure that that's at a high. I really used to fuck up with this because I would just like do my preset and I would never change that, and I would be like designing in a very low PPI, and pretty much what a high 300 PPI is like the highest quality. And that's really important with print because you don't want things to come out pixelated. The rest is good. You could leave it in pixel for preview mode. I never really touch that, and I also don't touch more settings. So then we're gonna click create. Period. And just like that, you have already made your first document. Slay bitch. Okay, so let's talk about what we're seeing here on the screen. So we're in the space. We're feeling overwhelmed. There's no need. I'm here to set you up for success today. So we're just going to take our time. And if you have any questions, comment them below or rewind. I also meant to introduce y'all to Marcel the Shell. If you have not seen this movie, you need to go see this movie. He changed my life. When in doubt, just look at Marcel. Thank you so much. So you see a giant white paper. You see a red outline. What you're seeing right now is a completely transparent space, which means that there is not actually a white background here. This is like if you were to design anything, like if you wanted a logo with no white background, you would design on this space. That red outline is where you're going to extend everything out to. So if we made a red piece of paper, we would extend the red not to the white line, but all the way to that red line. So it wouldn't go here, it would go right here. Let's set us up for success. I want to start off by saying that I'm not very good at using layers, but I highly encourage using layers. So I'm going to show you how. Some people don't use it like me, other people do, but let's just talk about the boring setup bullshit and then we'll get into the fun stuff. So first, we're going to name our artboard. This is super important because it saves you time when you're like exporting. So you know how earlier we named it My First Zine? We're going to also name this My First Zine. Slay. Which is pretty much naming this page. So let's say I was doing an interview and it was a 2-page interview. I may name my first artboard interview page 1 and then my second one interview page 2. Sick. Next, I'm going to click over to layers. And you'll probably just see this like one empty layer. What a layer is like the amount of work you're doing in this one space. So we're gonna work more with this once we add in like a color background and stuff like that. So we'll come back to that. Properties. This is pretty important. You're gonna go to edit artboards. If you couldn't add an artboard like I could a second ago, what you can do is go to properties, click edit artboards, and then you can name it right here. So pretty much the same thing. Great. Artboard options we'll get into another day, but you have just set up your first artboard, which is amazing and iconic. So we're all going to go to window, we're going to go to toolbars, and we're going to click advanced. This is pretty much going to get us just to all be looking at a very similar screen. Next, over here, this is your mighty toolbar. Don't be intimidated. I'm going to let you know right now that you're probably only going to use like 6 of these buttons. I've used Illustrator now for 2 years and I still only use the same 6 buttons, and I'm learning new things every day. So let's start with a background color. Super easy. We're going to click this little button right here. This is our rectangle tool, and if you hold it down, it gives you a lot of options for shapes. You have rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, flare. We're going to start with rectangle. The only way you can make backgrounds on Illustrator is to use the rectangle tool. So you're pretty much going to make a giant rectangle that takes up the space. So I'm going to start in the corner of this red, and I'm just going to drag all the way down to fill up the page. And I'm just going to make sure that this goes across all sides. It's really good to get in the habit of this because, you know, if you are designing and you forget to do that, you know, then at the end you have to reformat, and that's just not fun. Great. So now we're both looking at a white background. If you did that, pat yourself on the back. Period, bitch. So we're going to move over here to the appearance section, and now we're going to get into colors. And there's no specific way to learn this. I'm just teaching you like in my order of operation so you can just understand what you're working with today. Fill is the color that fills up the entire page. It's just like Windows Paint from back in the day. So your fill color is just your entire background. Stroke is the border. So let's say I wanted to like make a border on this white background. I could up the stroke, and as you see, it's giving my page a black border. So that's what your stroke is, and that applies to letters and background. So I'm gonna today, for right now, take my stroke off. So in order to take my stroke off or my fill off, I'm gonna click the white box with the red line in it, which means there's no stroke. So right now we're just looking at a completely white backdrop. Cool. For my fill, pick whatever color you want. What I like to do is use what I like to call the Picasso tool. I like it, Picasso, which is pretty much where I will pick a color from the Adobe presets. Then I'll click over to the paint and I'll kind of edit that color a little bit more. In our next video, we'll talk about how you can bring in like other colors that you maybe already have that you want to add here. Like if you were to go to Pantone.com and pick a color, like how to add it, we'll work on that next week. So pick a color, go to Picasso, kind of edit it a bit, give it a little customization, and pick a color. Something else to know, down here on Illustrator, you'll always see the no, which is the red line with the white box. You'll see the black box, and then you'll see the white. The black is not pure black for print, meaning that if you click that as your background color, it's going to come out like this like really ugly gray. So if you're ever trying to do black, what you need to do is pull it all the way down on the Picasso tool. So you get a full pure black. That's the purest black possible. Something else you can do if you don't want to keep doing that is click this square button right here. And what that is your swatch button. The swatch is pretty much how, if you go into Picasso and let's say you found a perfect color and you really want to use it again, if you click it, it's going to add the color you just made to your swatch box. So I'm just going to name this one Pure Black. But if you did blue and then you edited it a bit, you can click the new swatch and then name it like My Blue or anything you want. So I'm going to click OK. Sick. So that's done. We pretty much just made a background. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Amazing. Now let's talk about the mother and father of Illustrator Adobe, which is your select tool and your direct select tool. I like to call the one that's empty in the middle your Big Daddy tool. Why do I call it the Big Daddy tool? Because sometimes I like to think of, I love men. Men are the coolest. What does Cher say? I love men. I think men are the coolest, but I don't need one. It's giving very much that. Like, it's giving very much like a little empty inside. Like maybe the emotional maturity isn't always there. But if they pick something, they're going to pick everything about it. It's not going to be as specific. So Big Daddy tool is empty in the middle. If I use my Big Daddy tool and I pull something, it's going to pull the entire object off the screen, right? So that applies to your text. If you were to draw something, it's going to select the entire thing you made and it's going to move it around. So that's kind of what it's for. It's also there for resizing. So you can drag down, you can drag around, and you can make shapes. So it's taking the entire shape and it's like doing whatever you want to do to the entire shape. If you want to go back to where you were, just click Command Z. Cool. While we're here, let's talk about the difference between the square and the circle. The square is to resize and keep the corners sharp. So if I stretch this out, it's not going to round my corners at all. It's just going to keep it nice and pointy in each corner. If I go to the circle, you're going to see the arrow and then you're going to see like a little arch right there. Pretty much what that is like giving you the option to like round your corners. So you're just going to pull down and you can round it out literally to the point of a circle, or you can pull it out to there. It just gives it the option of like more style, I guess. So yeah, that's pretty much what you want to do. So you can choose what you want to do here. Do you want to keep it round? Do you want to keep it pointy? Me personally, I'm going to keep it pointy, which I think you guys should do too. We can do more like rounded stuff on the inside, but I don't want you to confuse the red border thing. So for now, let's just keep our background pointed. Great. So that's your Big Daddy tool. A little empty in the middle. We'll select everything without specification. Slay. Now let's talk about the Big Mama tool. We love a woman. We love women. what does Ariana Grande say in Monopoly? It's like something about, I like women and men, but like emphasis on the women, you know what I'm saying? So the select tool is amazing because you can take any super small detail and only fix that small detail. So here's an example. If I click this corner on my Big Mama tool, which is filled in the middle because her heart is full always. A woman just always have the heart full. If I click that tool and I only click one corner, what it's going to do is it's going to allow me to only change that one corner. And that applies to your text, your background, anything. So it's just a bit more specific about your selection. I'll show you how that works more with text in a little bit. So yeah, those are the holy grail of Illustrator. You're going to use those so much. So it's really important to learn which one is which. That took me some time to figure out when I first started on Illustrator, just knowing like, okay, this is like to only select one thing. This is to select everything. I would just think like tool on the left is everything. Tool on the right is selected. So yeah, Big Mama, big full heart, very selective about what she wants, very intentional. Then you have your Big Daddy tool, which is just like, bitch, I'm gonna select everything because I don't think much. Anyways, so that's that. Great. Marcel, they're doing so good, right? They're doing fucking amazing. Marcel doesn't cuss, but Marcel thinks you're doing fucking amazing. We're going to go back to our layers. And now you probably see an arrow on your layer and you're seeing something titled layer 1. We're going to press that arrow down. And over here you see an eyeball and then you see an empty space. What the eyeball is let's say you had a bunch of things on a piece of paper and you are seeing too much and you kind of want to like not see that for just a second so you can like fix something else. You would just turn the eyeball off and it would take away the item. But if you click it again, it'll pop back up. So it's still there. It's just making your visibility a little easier if you wanted to like, you know, like let's say you had like all these different designs on and that was, you needed to just get that out of the way to see what the design looks like. You press the eyeball, put it back. Cool. What is most important for me always is to click the lock button on my background, unless I plan to change the color, which if you want to change this color somewhere in the middle of the design, you would go back to layer, unlock it, change the color, lock it back. I say to lock it first because if you're like adding a lot to this, sometimes the selection tool will like naturally pick up the background as well as whatever else you're trying to pick up, and it can just get really fucking annoying. So you want to lock the background and just so it stays in place, if that makes sense. Sick, cool. Let's get into our text. So if you click the T here, you're going to see the type tool. Can you guess what it does? It types. So if you hold it down, it gives you a lot of options that you don't need. A whole fucking lot of options that you don't need. I use the type on a path tool. Let's start with the basics. So you'll see your big T. You clicked it. And then you're going to see a cursor box and a mouse. What I'm going to do is I always like to drag that out really big. You can deal with resizing later. Then you're going to see Lorem Ipsum. That is such a bad bitch name. Like, imagine you being named Lorem Ipsum. I mean, every graphic designer's nightmare, but like, that's kind of cunt. You know what I mean? Anyway, so let's all just do Helvetica because even though Helvetica is annoying, people want to act like Helvetica is just so overrated. Like, y'all bitches love Helvetica and so do I. So let's just all calm down. Over here on Helvetica, you're going to see exactly what you would see on like a Microsoft Word, which you know this stuff already. You already know how to like make it more bold, make it more light. So for me, I'm going to do like a pretty bold text. You can do whatever you want. Text size, I'm going to raise my text size a bunch. So let's all do that together. I'm going to raise it to like 76. Cool. This is more to like separate if let's say your paragraph got a little too close together. You could like press the button up and it's going to give more space in between your words, or you can press it down and it's going to bring it a little tighter. I've been using the really tight style a lot in my design, which has been really fun. So yeah, that's what that's for. So that's to make it like more condensed or a little longer. This one, I never touch. This one, I don't touch too much, but it's pretty much just spreading out the letters if you want to do that. So yeah, for now, I don't need to do that. Over here, paragraph options, you already know this stuff. We've all used Microsoft Word before. And what I really like is center text because duh. And And yeah, I mean, just look how pretty that looks. Like, I'm obsessed with how that looks right now. Great. Area type, I never touch. A big thing that's going to save you a lot of trouble, and this is your own preference. For me, I get really annoyed when, like, there's a dash in between a word. I just feel like it doesn't look clean. What I'm going to do is go to paragraph, and I'm going to click those 3 buttons, and there's this button right here called hyphenate. When you turn that off, it takes away the dash in between the words. So I'll do it again so you can see what I'm talking about. Hyphenate, no hyphenate, hyphenate, no hyphenate. So I don't want a hyphenation, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay, so let's type something about Marcel the Shell. Marcel the Shell is the baddest little fucker we have ever known. Period. Marcel the Shell is the baddest little motherfucker we've ever known. Loving how this is looking so far. Let's say I wanted to adjust. You just go back to your settings. For me, that text is a little too tight together. So I'm going to just do a little separation here. Great. I'm also going to like shift this a little bit, do a little more design. So you type whatever you want and kind of move it around as you'd like. I really love to use this to like space out my words. It kind of gives it a little more like taste. So just disregard me as I do this. You can adjust, and if you're happy with how it is, then hang tight for 2 seconds. I actually hate that. Design is so fun. It feels like a video game. Am I alone in feeling this way? Cool, that looks good to me. Great, so now we have our text. Everything looks really good. Now let's say that we want to start resizing this. We want to like give it a little more design. We're gonna need to create the outlines. Let's talk about creating outlines. What creating outlines does for anything is it takes whatever you just created and it makes it an object so that you can like move it and warp it and do a lot of really cool things to it. I never suggest this until you know that like your text is exactly how you want it to look. There's no typos, and you feel good about it. So I feel good about what I typed. Obviously you could change the colors later, but like, do you like the size? Obviously you can like, expand the object, meaning like the full word is going to be a box, which is an object. You can expand that later, but like, do you like how tall the letters are? If not, like you want to edit that all before you do create outlines. But I'm happy, so I'm going to click create outlines. I'm going to right click and I'm going to scroll down, and there's this button, create outlines. I use create outlines as much as I use the arrow tools, especially because like over at GASP, we're very like design heavy as far as like warping and like coloring and doing more playful things with our text. So creating outlines is like super imperative for us. So as you can see, now that entire box is an object, which means it's pretty much the exact same thing your background is, how it's like a rectangle. What Illustrator is doing is it's seeing this text essentially as a rectangle. So now that that's done, what I want to do is I want to go and change the color of it. I want to make it white. And you can also select it all and you can Picasso it if you want, or you could just keep it white. Do whatever you want. For me, I'm going to keep it white. Once that's done, I want to show you something really cool you can do. I'm going to expand this bigger by holding the shift button. Another pro tip, let's say you're trying to like expand something, but you don't want it to start looking like this, right? Which is where like it didn't keep the shape. If you hold the shift button while holding one corner, it's going to keep the format of what you just typed exactly the same. So always hold the shift button and drag a corner. If you don't hold the shift button, you're going to end up with like really stretched text. And if that's an artistic choice, slay. If not, you're going to be really happy to hold that shift button. So I'm going to hold the shift button again, and I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to scoot it over here a little bit so I can show you ways that we can play with the select tool again. So again, we're going to go back to the select tool, and this is optional, but I would suggest practicing with me on this so you can kind of get an understanding of the stroke and the fill tool, as well as your select and direct select tool. Everyone take a big deep breath. Marcel, how are the people doing? Sorry, he's very shy. He only talks to me. Guys, Marcel the Shell was saying, you know what it never was? That's serious. It was never that serious. So Marcel thinks you're doing great. So I'm going to take my select tool, and as you see, if I click anything right here, it's going to select the entire object, which I want to get a little more specific. So I'm going to use my Big Mama tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a small square over only the word Marcel. This can get kind of annoying because like if you pull it too much, it's going to select the other ones, and you see it kind of selects the top of the next letter. So I only want to get this one. So you can also zoom in. To zoom in, you just do your fingers like that on your mouse pad if you have a MacBook. And I'm going to just really carefully drag it over only the word Marcel, and then I'm going to let it go. Cool. So now you're seeing all these squares, all these circles, and you're probably like, fuck, dude, I don't know what's going on, and that's okay. Here you're seeing all the squares, all the corners, all the rounded. It's just like the rectangle, how you were able to round or keep cornered. So here, let's customize. Let's kind of play around with new things. So a way to know like what's selected and what's not, if a blue square is like fully filled in, like you see here, it's selected. So that means like whatever is selected is gonna like, this is going to apply to. Does that make sense? So if I go like that, it's gonna round all of my letters, right? Which is cool. Command Z. If I want to, you know, maybe like stretch the top, I like to use my arrow if you like to like stretch letters. If I move all of the letters up, it's gonna move up the entire thing. Does that make sense? So yeah. Now let's say you're like, I really want to like stretch the E. This is something that we are so known for doing all the time. When in doubt, stretch the E. So pretty much I'm going to go to the E and I want to only stretch the corner. So I want the E to be like extra long. I'm going to select the end like that. And then I'm going to press the arrow on my mouse, keyboard out. And as you can see, the E is going to start to run into the L, right? So what you actually need to do is if you plan to customize any letter, you need to select everything after it because it's going to help you by moving everything. So instead of just selecting the E at the end, let me do that better. I'm going to draw the little rectangle. So drawing the rectangle over it, you're telling Illustrator what you want to customize, if that makes sense. I'm going to select that and I'm going to select everything after it. So it's going to select all that. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to press the arrow button. And what it's doing, as it's pushing the E out, it's pushing out everything else too. Does that make sense? Cool. So I'm going to just do that to my liking. That's a little too much for me. I'll do it like there. Looks great to me. And let's say I wanted to do like a little bit more. I would select the end of the L and maybe the second L here. Extend it. Cool. Do the same with this L. Just select the end. Extend it. And fuck it. Let's have more fun. Let's extend the top of the L. So I'm only selecting the areas that I want to edit and duplicate. Does that make sense? Great. I love doing this with text because I feel like it kind of just, it gives it a little more, I don't know, like visual language. And this is fun to do. Something else you can do is, you know how we just selected? So let's say you only want to round like this corner of the R. I'd round that. Maybe I want to round this one. I'd drag that in. Boom. And see, I also don't want to do that because I think that's kind of ugly. But yeah. So that's how you can kind of like customize your text. Great. Something else to know is let's say that right now we see like a fully white filled in letter. What if we want it to just be outlined? Like what if we don't want it to be filled in? This is another opportunity where your Big Mama select tool comes in handy. You're going to drag the box over any letter or word. Pick it. You can do letter, word, totally up to you. Select it. And then what I like to do is go to the Big Daddy tool just to hold it in place. So pretty much I just selected it very specifically, and so I don't make the mistake of maybe like clicking another letter while trying to edit. Selecting the Big Daddy tool kind of makes it so that like this is the only thing I'm going to focus on, if that makes sense. Everyone take a deep breath right now. I know it's a lot of information, but you're doing very well. So next, I'm going to go over here to fill and stroke, and as you can see, you're probably seeing the same thing in this corner. It's the exact same concept, except for it's a quick action. So you can easily switch them. There's two ways to do this. You could just press it like that. And now what you're seeing is you're probably like, wait, why does it look blue? Blue is just selecting. So anytime you're seeing blue on Illustrator, it's not turning anything that you made blue. It's just saying, hey, this is the object you're selecting that you just made a stroke, right? So what you're seeing now is an outline, which is a stroke. So how I did that over here is Command Z. I just swapped it by clicking it. Or you could also go over here and click your fill, click the white box with the red line, which we already talked about. like do it like that. You could switch it that way if that makes sense. So I'm here on my stroke and that looks a little too thin to me. I'm going to up it a few points. Click out of it. I like that. That looks really good. If I didn't like it, I'd have to probably Command Z to reselect it. Make it a little smaller. Sick. That looks good to me. Let's see. Fire. It's a little thin, so maybe I'll up it like 1 more point. That looks good. Okay, cool. Next thing I'm going to do is resize the bottom. This is my own personal preference. So I'm going to go in with my Big Mama tool, only select the bottom. And what I'm about to do is like extend it so it extends out to where the shell is. So I'm going to click the Big Daddy tool, hold the shift button, grab any corner and drag it so it's right underneath there. Like right there. Sometimes I have to zoom in to get a bit more detail because I feel like if it's zoomed out, it only goes like out or in. But if I want to like really do like a super small drag, I zoom in because Illustrator can pick up that I'm trying to do a more detailed change. So I zoomed in. I'm going to continue to drag out so that it meets it right there. Perfect. What are those pink lines I keep saying? Those pink lines are your guide. So sometimes if you're trying to place something in the middle or, drag something out to meet it at the end, Illustrator is smart sometimes and will show you like, hey, if you put it right here where that pink line shows up, this is exactly right under the object above. And we can kind of guess that that's what you're trying to do here. Amazing. So there I have that. Something else to know about Illustrator that I never use, but I probably should. If you go under artboards, there's something called rulers and grids. And if you click the grid, it gives you an option to see like a bunch of lines. That's like way too much for me, like could never. It also gives you a transparency grid. I really don't use this often, but it's cool. You got options, you know what I'm saying? It also gives you a ruler. There's a lot of great tools that you can use. So yeah, great. Next, I'm going to grab my Big Daddy tool and it's going to select the entire object. I'm going to minimize that by holding the shift button and grabbing a corner, and I'm going to pull it into here. Cool. Now, what the best part about this is when I click this, it's not clicking my background because I locked the background layer earlier, remember? So I'm going to expand this however I want. And then I'm noticing that stroke, now that I had to minimize it, is a little too thick. So I'm going to go back in with my Big Mama tool, select it, and I'm going to minimize that stroke probably 2 points. Okay. So I just fixed it. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. Also, something else you can do if you want to change like a color of something. Oh my God. Command Z. That happens sometimes. When in doubt, Command Z. I'm going to Big Mama tool. Oops. Making sure I'm selecting the entire letter. I'm going to have to zoom in to get some detail here. Perfect. Big Mama tool. I'm going to go over everything. Boom. I'm going to go to fill, and I can change the color of that if I want to. Super cool. Great. Marcel the Shell is the baddest little motherfucker we've ever known. Period. Now let's have some fun. So if I go to my Big Daddy tool and I select everything, this is my object. This technically isn't like my favorite. I'm going to keep it white. I just want to show you that. But this is my favorite design. I just want to show you basics. So let's select the entire thing and let's go to object. We're going to click transform and we're going to go to rotate. This gives us the option of rotating things to the side. But something else you can do is just kind of hover your arrow over the corner and you can just drag it to your desired spot. For me, I'm going to drag it. I'm going to keep it centered. Great. Then I'm going to also go to object and click transform. And there's a reflect button. We use this a lot at GASP because we like to put a lot of our text backwards. So if you want to mirror something, you could use it for this as well. You could also click horizontal and it'll flip it upside down and vertical. So lots of customization options. Again, that's object, transform, reflect, or rotate. Great. Easy. Super cool. Let's do one more fun thing and then I'll show you shapes and then that's it for today. We're going to go to effect. This was like my bitch when I first started Illustrator. I literally warped everything and I thought I was God. And if you warp everything, you are a God. So there's a lot here that we'll go over another day, but I just want to show you something super fun and simple. We're going to go to effect and then we're going to click warp and just click the first one. And what you're going to see is like your entire shit just like warped. And it's like, whoa, that's so fucking cool. On warp, there's so many options you can go between to like kind of play around and figure out like what you like and what you don't like. I'm gonna do arc. You can bend it different ways. You can play with it more horizontal or vertical. This is just like playtime. So lots of playtime here. Maybe I want it a little more horizontal. And it kind of like shifts based on like the direction you're going. So you just play around here. There's no right or wrong. If you're not seeing this, it's probably because you don't have your preview button selected. If I deselect that, it's not going to show me what I'm doing right now. So you always want to make sure that's selected anytime you're doing any sort of like warp design. I like that, but that's super cool. Okay. Also, this is like the fuggliest thing I've ever made. I'm just trying to teach you basics, but cool. I'm happy with that. So you get something you like, and there you have it. You just made warp text and text. Fuck yeah. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my layers, and I'm now going to lock that layer. So now that that's done, I'm going to go to my layers, and we are about to name our first layer. I'm going to name this text and background. And I always suggest to keep the color light blue, just because your mind gets really used to like light blue being the selection. So like switching it up can kind of like fuck things up. So just always make your select options light blue. Click OK. And if you feel good about that layer, lock it. Now let's move into shapes. We're going to click the 3 lines. We're going to do a new layer. And what this pretty much means is like we are now opening a new panel. Why this is important is because if you're editing everything on one layer, it's like totally fine. I do it all the time. If you're working on your layers and you just want to like go in and fix like something in text, you can just go to your text and background layer, unlock it, and then work on it, lock it back. It just is a way to keep things organized, not necessary, totally optional. So now we have layer 2. I'm going to go back and click the blue like we had earlier, light blue, which is standard. And I'm going to name it shapes. Period. So all these layers are locked. I'm happy with it. We are now in a new panel. So if I click anything here, it's not going to open. What I'm going to have to do is unlock these. Another quick thing you could do is just lock the entire layer and it'll naturally do it. So I'm here. Let's do some shapes, yeah? So if you hold down the rectangle button, which is where we've made our background, there's different options. You have rounded rectangle, which you could easily just do in the rectangle option and round it. Ellipse to a polygon, star. There's just like a lot of space to do more. So I'm going to go to the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold the shift button if I want to make a perfect circle. So boom, that just made a circle by holding the shift button. If I don't hold the shift button, I have more room to make more funky shapes. Does that make sense? Again, we can go to our swatch or fill, switch it, and you can either just have an outlined shape or a filled in shape, and yeah. So that's shapes. Very easy. It applies to all your shapes, star, whatever. For me, I want to try something kind of cool and do a red circle behind the text. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to red. I'm going to customize it just a little bit because I feel like sometimes the Adobe red, it doesn't give what I like really want it to give. So I just do a little editing. Perfect. I'm then going to pull this here and fuck, we have a problem. The red is not behind the words. So what do? This is something that happens a lot and used to piss me off a lot when I was first starting in Illustrator. I'm going to go to right click. And there is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. For me, the Father and the Son are the select tools. The Holy Spirit is the create outlines, and I guess Jesus would be the arrange tool. So the arrange tool can be kind of funky sometimes, but what this does is it allows you to bring something in front of the other or behind the other. So I always do send backwards first if I can. Sometimes that might not work, and it could not be working because my layers were locked. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to right click. And if the send to the back doesn't work, try send backwards. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I had to send things to the back, but you get it. Something to know, sometimes when Illustrator is like really, really tired, you'll see this like gray bar at the top that has like a folder and it says layer 2 and it looks like gray on the screen. Just click it again and it'll go away. It's just like a stupid bug that illustrators have. Also, what I did was I just dragged my shapes hoe into the layer box. So just so you know that. That shouldn't really happen, but in case it does, just drag your layer. So what I did was I literally just took it from here and I put it here. Perfect. Go here. I'm going to outline it up the points a little bit. I might pull it down a little bit. Cool. That's terrible. Okay. Maybe, the black's bringing me down. The black's taking me down. I need to change the background color. It's stressing me out. I'm sorry, everybody. Personal artistic choice right here. La 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 la. Okay, we could do that. And then maybe we could change this text to like, they wanna ride with the Legos Bratz doll. Unlock the group. There we go. Maybe I could change this to like pinkish. I'm gonna do that. Guys, it's literally the ugliest thing I've ever made, but bear with me. I'm just here to teach y'all today. Please know our design is 10 times better than this. What am I even talking about? Y'all know what it is. Y'all already know what it is. Okay, so I'm noticing there's a stroke on my Marcel. I'm just gonna click all these real quick, fix that. There we go. I just made no stroke on that. Disregard what I was doing. Okay. So there you have it. You can place it where you want. And then I want you to open your text box and say, make your font like 30, delete, and then say, hi, my name is Courtney, whatever your name is. I just made my first ever Illustrator doc, and I am a baddie, and I am a baddie. That's all for today, folks. That is all for today. You just learned how to make your first Illustrator document, but not too fast. Let's export it. Guys, I can't talk. Let's export. So let's say that you want to work on this later. You're going to save it. Duh, we all know how to save something. I named it My First Zine. Why are you seeing My First Zine AI? My First Zine AI is Illustrator's way of letting you know this is a document you save that you can reopen and edit again later. So you're saving it as an AI file, meaning when you save this, you're going to see like the Illustrator logo. When you click it, it's going to open you up to this exact document that you're looking at, the exact workspace. So I'm going to save that as My First Zine AI. I'm just going to save it to my desktop. All this, I don't click nothing. I just click OK. It's saving. It's done. Now, if I want to export it, I'm going to go to export, and you see an option for export for screens, export as. I'm going to go to export as, and you're going to see the option for a PNG. You can type whatever. You can keep it My First Zine. Here, you can select whatever you want. You have JPEG, Photoshop, SVG, TIFF. We'll get more into this later. For today, just save it as a PNG. And then you're going to click Use Artboards. If you had 2 artboards on here and you only want to export one, you would click Range and you would type in number 1. Or if you want to export both, you would export all. Today we only have one, so we can click all. Does that make sense? I'm going to export that. Here, it's just letting me know that you are exporting this in a resolution of 300 ppi, and the background color is transparent. Yes. Click OK. It's saving. Let's go to our Finder. I see My First Zine. I'm going to go to AirDrop. Send it to my iPhone. And then, voila, people. Marcel, it's all about you today, baby. It's all about you today, baby. So literally everything that you just did, you have it here now. And that, my friends, is Illustrator. You just learned all the necessary tools to make a magazine. There's more fun ones that we can work on next time. But you just learned all the basics. You see, you're like, why was I stressed? Tutorials suck. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna down anybody. But really though, Marcel says I'm raising my voice and I should talk quieter. So I'm sorry. That's it. You just learned how to do your first Adobe document. I mean, like, should I take you to dinner or something? Like, what do you want? Marcel said, you know why he smiles? Because it's worth it. Anyways, okay, guys, thank you guys so much for watching today. Please come back. We'll be back next week. This is every week. We're hitting the ground running. You're literally going to make issue 12 with us. Thank you again for joining. If you liked today, follow us at gaspzine.com. That's GASPZINE.com. On Instagram, that's at GASPZINE. And if you like this, you can follow me on TikTok, Gasp Zine. And yeah, see you later. Bye. I'm just kidding. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye. Say bye, Marcel. Bye. Thanks, everybody.